Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Grants Pass School District's Return to School Town Hall, our second one today. We really appreciate you being here. I'm Kristen Hosfeld, the district's communications specialist. Today, we're going to be walking you through where we're at in planning for the 2021 school year. We're hoping to be here for about an hour. It went a little over in our first meeting, and we just want to make sure that we're able to get to as many questions as possible. As many of you know, our plans have needed to change and evolve several times over the course of the summer due to new and ever-changing state requirements that we've been getting from Oregon Department of Education, Oregon Health Authority, and the Governor's Office. You can see tonight's agenda. We would ask that you hold off on submitting questions until you've heard the presentation because we may be able to answer them. We hope we will. So tonight we'll be discussing the new COVID-19 metrics and the requirements our county must meet in order to reopen schools to in-person learning. We'll talk about safety protocols we have in place for if and when students return on site. We're going to talk about the models that we're shaping for comprehensive distance learning, on-site instruction, and our 100% online program called GP Online, as well as hybrid. You may hear that. That's a combination of comprehensive distance learning and on-site. We'll be discussing students who receive special services and what that will look like under the current state requirements. And we'll touch on other supports, meals, transportation, Chromebooks, etc. And after we get through the bulk of this information, there will be time for questions. Please know that what we tell you today could change if state guidance changes, but we will continue to keep you updated on our website through email, texts, and so on. And so joining us for tonight's town hall, our superintendent, Kirk Cole.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Chief Finance and Operations Officer, Sherry Ely. Our Director of Elementary Education, Susan Zatola. Our Director of Secondary Education, Trish Evans.
Hi there.
Our Director of Student Services, Linda White.
Hi, everyone.
Our Director of School Improvement, Todd Bloomquist.
Hey, everybody. I figured out Zoom.
Our Director of Human Resources, Dan Huber-Cantola.
Hello, everybody.
And Marlene Diego is here to interpret any questions that come in from our Spanish-speaking families.
Hi, everyone.
And lastly, just a few notes about the etiquette for the town hall. This is a little different if you joined us for the 1 p.m. version, and if you're back for a second round questions, we're going to have those be entered into the Q&A. So general comments or feedback, go ahead and submit those in the chat. That will help us keep things as clean as possible. We're going to be compiling all of the questions that come in to the Q&A into an FAQ document that will be on our website. So that will just help us keep everything clear. We welcome and sincerely appreciate all of the feedback that we've been receiving. It's really been valuable as we've gone through this planning process. There are just a few notes for comments that go against our policy for our town hall, and so we just want to let people know that if you violate those, you may be removed from the town hall. We just ask that people be courteous and respectful. We're all in this together. And if we miss your question because we may run out of time, or if you have additional comments, you can submit those to the email that is on your screen. If we do have people joining us by phone, it's Office of the Superintendent with underscores in between each word, and that's at grantspass.k12.or.us, and that's also on our website as well. Once again, for those just joining us, because we've had a few people hop on, I want to remind you there will be time for questions, but we do ask that you hold off on submitting questions to the Q&A until you've heard the presentation, as our wonderful panelists may be able to answer them as they present. So now let me introduce Superintendent Kirk Cole.
Well, good evening and welcome Grants Pass School District, parents, students, staff, and community members. Great that so many of you on. We're almost up to 200 people joining us now, and we had over 300 people this afternoon. We look forward to doing future webinars as we get updates, and appreciate you taking the time to learn more. And so, as Kristen said, my name is Kirk Colvin. I'm your superintendent of schools. Thanks for taking the time to tune in. The district's planning to reopen our schools and provide instruction, and we're here to tell you what that looks like based on the guidance and requirements that have been established by the Oregon Department of Ed, the Oregon Health Authority, as directed by the governor. So first, I want to start this message off with a message of safety. The safety and health of our students and staff is at the forefront of every thought and decision we're sharing with you tonight. Hundreds of hours have gone into this summer, just going into safety planning. This includes everything from developing distance measures to mask requirements and protocols, sanitizing protocols and schedules, cohorting groups of students, arrival and dismissal procedures, wellness checks for staff and students, breakfast and lunch procedures, how to respond in the event of a positive case of COVID, and so much more. We're working with our local health authority to ensure our safety measures and communication protocols are as comprehensive as possible. It's important to know that the very first thing we'll need to do with our staff is to take the necessary time to train everyone on this information. And likewise, training students will be our first priority when they are able to return. We all share the same concerns about returning to school, whether it's about our own personal safety, the safety of our loved ones, or concerns about our students not getting necessary instruction and falling behind. So we just want to give an assurance that we are being diligent on all these fronts. It's going to be imperative that we're all engaged to the highest level in each of our roles. Teachers with instruction and connection with students and parents, students attending to the learning schedules and opportunities that are offered, and families. Your role is huge right now, and we want to support you. And we need you to support our students in being patient in the manner in which instruction and learning will need to happen. So we all need to lead from our respective roles and have a lot of patience, grace, and understanding during this time. Because we all need to lead in these times, I shared the following quote by Roy T. Bennett, a thought leader and author, with our administrative team and several others recently. And that quote says, "Don't be pushed around by the fears in your mind, be led by the dreams in your heart." And as I'm sharing that with people, I'm also sharing my dreams from my heart right now. My dreams include seeing a kickoff on Friday night or a soccer goal scored on Mel Ingram. My dreams include hearing our band practicing outside my office and then competing and dominating in competitions. I dream of getting back to the busy and productive noise of a classroom with students and teachers practicing their craft. So I ask each of you, what are the dreams in your heart for our students and community right now? And let that lead you through these times. We'll be better as an education system and stronger as a community. We are stronger together. We are GP. So thank you again for taking the time this evening. I am going to turn it over to Chief Operations and Finance Officer, Sherry Ely.
Kirk, did you want to go over the metrics first?
Well, thank you, Sherry. I jumped that piece on my agenda. So we want to talk about metrics. There is guidance very specific about criteria we need to meet to bring any student back. So in order to bring all students back, we get information, and we will share the link with you where to find this information that's updated weekly. We will need, as a county, 10 or fewer positive cases of COVID per 100,000 people per week for 3 consecutive weeks. And so for Josephine County, that's 8 or less new cases per week for 3 consecutive weeks. And we will have to be 5% or less test positive results for our county for 3 weeks in a row. And there's one more measure to bring all students back. That is, the state is at 5% or less positive COVID tests per week for 3 weeks in a row. And so that's to bring all students back in right now proposed hybrid model for K through 3. There's a potential that we could bring all students back full time. So the exception for kindergarten through 3rd grade, I believe, is another slide. There we go. So there is an exception for K3 for limited targeted on-site learning only if the following metrics be met. And it's only our county metrics that need to be met to bring back K through 3. we need 30 or less positive cases per 100,000 for 3 weeks in a row. And for Josephine County, that's 25 or fewer cases per week. We need 5% or less test positive for 3 weeks in a row as well. And the third caveat is that COVID-19 is not actively spreading among the school community. So that will be determined by the local health authority as that guidance is issued. And so I know there was a lot of questions around the metrics, but we will post out there in the chat a link to where those are found at the Oregon Department of Ed's website. So Sherry, now I think I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kirk. So I am going to take you through the day in the life of a student from a safety perspective and talk to you about some of the provisions that we are putting in place to keep your kids and staff safe once we are able to bring students back to school. So first we'll start with the buses. If you have students that are riding the bus, they will get on the bus at their bus stop. They'll have their face covering on. That will be a requirement. And they will load from the back to the front of the bus to try to minimize the contact between students. If a student does get on the bus and they appear to be ill, we have a certain area in the bus where the bus driver will have that student sit until they get to the school. And once they're at the school, that student will be taken off the bus first, and a staff member will take them to an isolation room where they will remain until we can contact their parents so that their parent can come and pick them up. The other students will then be escorted to the check-in area. And so whether the students are riding a bus or whether their parents are bringing them to school or they're walking or riding their bikes, everybody will have to check in through a central area. And that will most likely be set up at the elementary in the front of the school, and the middle school and high school will have several different check-in points. At the check-in area, the staff will take the student's temperature, and if their temperature is less than 100.4, the students can grab their breakfast and then they can go into the building. They'll go to at the elementary, they'll go to their regular classroom. At secondary, they'll go to their first period class. If the student does have a temperature over 100.4, then they would be taken to an isolation area where we would contact the parents, and the parents would come and pick them up if the parents were not still at the school. And one thing that we are implementing this year is at the elementary is a geofencing technology. It's called Pick My Kid, and it basically creates a geofence around each school. And parents will be given instructions on how to download the app and how to use that. And the purpose of that is when parents do come on site, the school will be notified that they're there and that their children are coming into the school. And also at dismissal time, it will notify us when the parents come in, and we will notify the teacher, and the student will be brought to the front of the school and taken to their parents so that we don't have the congregation of, lines of students outside of the school at dismissal time. Because parents will not be allowed just to walk into the school and get their students like they do now. The other thing that we will be really pushing this year, which I feel like we push it a lot, but we're going to continue to push it, is the hand washing. And so before the students eat their breakfast, before they go to lunch, after they use the restroom, when they come back in from the playground, they will be directed to wash their hands, and the teachers will be responsible for teaching the students the appropriate way for hand washing. And I'm sure you guys have seen that everywhere. There are posters everywhere, and there are little TV spots that show you how to do the 20-second, fully washing your hands. And so we'll be doing a lot of training and teaching with the kids, just reinforcing that hand washing. So the next thing I'll talk about is at lunchtime. At our elementary schools, we will have lunches delivered to the classroom, and the students will be eating lunch in their classroom, and then they will go outside to recess, and they'll stay in their classroom cohorts. And so cohorting is a word that you're going to hear a lot from us this year, because in order to be able to provide contact tracing to the health department. We need to keep kids in stable cohorts, and also it's another preventative measure to help lessen the spread of COVID-19. So when they go out on the playground, they will have their zoned area that their classroom will go to, and they'll have their own tub of playground supplies that they will take out with them. And then when they come back in, those supplies will be sanitized so that they'll be ready to go for the next day. At our secondary schools, we have identified several different areas where students will be able to remain in their stable cohorts and get their lunches and be able to have a comfortable place where they can eat their lunches as well, maintaining that good stable cohort. Cleaning during the day will also be a priority. Our custodians will be on a certain schedule of where they will sanitize the restrooms and any of the commonly touched surfaces like entry and exits, that type of thing. In the classrooms, that will be the responsibility of staff to wipe down the desks and the tables in between activities, or at the secondary level in between classes that come and go. And so that will be a really big item that we are focusing on this year. If we have an outbreak, or if someone at one of our schools tests positive, we will immediately contact the health department, and of course the person will not be allowed to either stay at school or come back to school depending on when we find out of the positive test. And then we will work with the health department to determine if we need to just close down maybe that one classroom. Do we need to close down the entire school? Will it affect the buses? That type of thing. Once we make that determination, then we will get the communication out to families about the situation, and the health department will start the contact tracing. And so part of the check-in process and the cohorting is allowing us to have that contact tracing so that we know who every kid has been in contact with during the day and who every staff member has been in contact with. So when the health department comes in, they'll trace that back, and then they will let people know if there's a possibility that their child could have been exposed to someone who had COVID-19. The other thing that we'll be doing is having a check-in process for staff. So we have an electronic means to do that, and every staff member has to verify their health before they actually leave home. And so they open up the app, they answer 2 questions. One of them asks about, do you have any of the symptoms of COVID-19, and it lists the symptoms. And then the second question is, have you been in contact with anyone who may have tested positive for COVID-19? If staff answers no to both of those, they can proceed to work as normal. They will come in a separate entry, and the first thing they have to do is wash their hands when they get there, and then they'll go either directly to their classroom or to their identified station where they might be helping with check-ins or that kind of thing. If anybody answers yes to any of those questions, then they have to stay home and they have to call their supervisor, and they won't be allowed to come into work until it is determined if they do or do not have COVID-19. Have I forgotten anything? I know that was a lot of information I was blasting out there, and I hope I didn't forget anything. We've been putting a lot of time into the safety measures and cleaning processes, so.
That's pretty comprehensive. And once again, folks, the nuances and details of what Director Ely has shared are deep and abundant, and being very thoughtful about that. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you. And now I will turn it over to Susan Zatola and Trish Evans, and they will talk about our education plans.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yes, I'm Susan Zatola, Director of Elementary Education, and I'm going to kick this off. I'm actually going to talk right now just about kindergarten through 3rd grade. As Superintendent Cole mentioned at the start of the town hall, when he went over the metrics, there are 2 sets of metrics. And 4th and 5th graders are in the metric that is combined with secondary. So when Director Evans talks about the plan that secondary is doing, she will include 4, 5 in that because they're under that same set of metrics. So I'll just talk about K-3. So as Superintendent Kolb explained, we do have a different set of metrics that has been set up for us to look at, or determines whether or not we can consider any in-person instruction. And currently in Josephine County, those metrics are being met. However, we're not in the 3-week window yet that will determine that at the beginning of the school year whether or not we could have kids in person. The first week of that 3-week consecutive window is August 17th. So starting August 17th begins the 3 weeks before school starts that if we meet the metrics, we can consider having kids in person. However, like lots of things, the official data doesn't come out until a couple days after that week ends. So our first indication will be August 24th. Then we'll have the data for the first week in that window, and get that first hint of how things are trending based on the current weeks right now and then that week. And so around that time is when we feel like we'll be able to make a more firm decision on whether we're moving forward with some version of in-person learning, or if we will need to start in comprehensive distance learning, CDL. You might hear that a lot, so tuck that one away, CDL. But like I said, Director Evans is going to explain that and talk about that more. So if and when K-3 students are able to start school, we will be starting in what we're calling a soft start, meaning we're not just going to start the first day of school, all kids come and we're going. We're going to start very slow. We're still defining what that soft start will be. We fully understand that parents need to know sooner than later. I know that you all would have liked to have known weeks ago what that will look like, but we are trying to be very thoughtful, safety being the first and foremost thing on our mind, and then also knowing that these are our youngest learners. Our kinders have never even been in school, so there's a lot to learn. And if any of you are parents of those 5-year-olds, it takes a lot of repetition for them to learn things. So we're going to go slow. It might look like small groups of 5 to 8 kids at a time in a class coming back, and then rotating through all of the kids, and maybe doing that for a week, and then maybe increasing the size of the group for another week. So we're going to go really slow. We want to make sure that all of our families, our parents, our students, and our staff feel very confident about our policies and procedures and going forward. So though we do understand the difficulty that places on people for planning, we feel like that is a priority for us and something we need to do to make sure that we do things well. Our hope is that at some point in the school year, we could be on what is called a modified full-time. Modified just means it's going to be a little bit of a different time print. Typically, students can be dropped off at 7:30 previous to this year. The earliest students could be dropped off going forward is 7:45. So just a 15-minute difference there. School would still start at 8 o'clock like it has in the past. And then the end of the day would be a little bit earlier. So the end of the day would be 1:30 for kids. That's when dismissal would be.
Did Susan freeze? Susan, your video froze and audio.
While we check on that technical issue, I can pick up with grades 4 and 5 and talk about middle and high school a little bit, and then we'll come back to the K-3 issue. Hello, everybody. I'm Tricia Evans. I'm the Director of Secondary Education. And as Susan was mentioning, comprehensive distance learning is the plan for students in grades 4 through 12. We made a decision when the metrics came out that it's too difficult scheduling wise to bounce back and forth in and out of in-person instruction and virtual instruction. So we are committed to comprehensive distance learning through at least November 10th, which is the day before Veterans Day. Until that time, comprehensive distance learning will be a much different experience than what you experienced this spring with our GP Learn at Home. That was developed in a crisis situation, and we have a lot different plans coming into the fall. Want to talk to you a little bit about what that's going to look like. We really are hoping it's a temporary situation and that we will be able to come back to in-person instruction. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on our hybrid model and how we'll cover things when students are in person on our campuses, like lunch and transportation and such, because for now students won't be coming to school. We'll, as we watch the metrics, we will update you on our hybrid plan. So what will be happening this fall in comprehensive distance learning is that students will be supported by their classroom teachers in a virtual setting using a learning management system called Canvas. Last spring we used Google Classroom, and Google Classroom had some real good components to it, but Canvas allows us to put everything in one place, and Director Bloomquist is going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Students will have a schedule routine where they are required to log on in a synchronous time. That means the same time as their teacher. We will be making accommodations. I already see in some of the questions and chats about, well, what if my child can't make it at that time, or I'm at work? We will be recording lessons. There will be opportunities for students to check in at various times during the day, but they will have to check in order to be counted as having positive attendance. We really want to try to help facilitate peer interaction in this environment, and so there will be time set aside for check and connect with our students to facilitate that peer interaction, also to help clarify student understanding in their learning. There was a question in the chat as well about letter grades. In the spring we did pass incomplete. We will be moving to a letter grade system. It will include the A, B, C, and a D. High school students will get credit for a D. Elementary, 4th and 5th grade will be using their standard report card, and they will be getting grades at the end of the trimester. For students in middle school, we will only be giving students 6 classes in the CDL environment, and if we come back on campus in hybrid. We needed to pare down our classes to make this a little bit more manageable for students. So every student will be taking language arts, math, science, and social studies, as well as their health PE class and 1 elective. For students at the high school, they'll be taking 4 classes per quarter. Just to help, because there's been a lot of confusion and a lot of concern over how this might impact graduation. Actually, it increases the credit opportunities for students. Typically in a traditional school year, students can earn 7.5 credits. In this model, they'll be able to earn 8 credits in the year. So for the quarter, they'll take 4 classes for that class. For example, if a student's taking language arts, all of our students at the high school take language arts each year. It's a year-long course. Traditionally, in this non-traditional model, English language arts will be 2 of their quarters. The way that it works out in instructional time is because they're taking fewer classes, we'll be able to use more time to help them cover the content. I've seen questions about concerns about lessening the content, the rigor of the course. We are making sure that the classes are worth the credit that students will be earning in order to work towards their path for graduation. Like I said, one of the positives is it will offer an opportunity for students to earn an extra half a credit, perhaps exploring an elective or such that they want to take at the high school. Our high school will be offering their full complement of courses that are available in our course catalog. The teachers will be designing those classes and setting them up in the comprehensive distance learning format. I'll talk about the difference between CDL and GP Online in just a few minutes, but I want to tell you a little bit more about Canvas and let Dr. Bloomquist tell you a little bit more about what to expect in that environment.
Thanks, Trish. And I'm going to have Susan just finish up because her computer froze for some reason, and I'll come right back to Canvas. So Susan, did you want to share a few more things about K5?
Yeah, I must have said something the Zoom police don't like, and they kicked me off. I don't know what it was though. But anyway, so I was just explaining, I think where I was explaining that as soon as we are able to, we will make a decision about what that September soft start will look like, and then move on from there. A couple of the things that I wanted to touch on is that, you know, I've heard lots of comments and questions that students, you know, will just be stuck in one classroom and never, you know, never get to move or leave or do anything like that. And that is not true. Though they will be staying in their classroom and not going to the cafeteria or the gym, or the music room, those specialists will be coming to them. They will be going to recess. They'll have at least, every grade will have at least 2 recesses a day. The principals have created zones so that a class or a cohort won't mix with another class or cohort, but there will be lots of outside time. There will be lots of movement breaks built into the day. Kids will be up and moving around, and you know, and having that healthy interaction. Also, just wanted you to know that hand washing, like Director Ely talked about, is super important. She's right. She's always talking about that. That's not new in these times. And so your elementary students specifically will be washing their hands when they enter their classroom, before and after lunch, before and after recess, and then I hope they're already used to doing washing their hands always after the restroom. So that, along with wearing a face mask or a shield, is something that we're really asking our families to help with us now. Everybody has different opinions on face masks, but what we're asking is that you be a positive role model for your kids now, that you don't wait for the first day of school for your child to wear a face mask, that they start doing that now, they get used to it. Maybe you help them buy one that they, you know, think is cute, or decorate one or something, but just really getting used to that and practicing their hand washing so that it's not something new when they enter school. And that's a way that we're really hoping you can partner with us. And I think that's about all I was going to talk about, Dr. Bloomquist.
Awesome. Great job. So let me just share with you a little bit about Canvas. You're going to hear that word quite a bit this year, and probably going forward for quite a long time. When we surveyed parents, and you all were kind enough to let us know your experiences this past spring, we talked to kids. How was that? And it was, you know, quite a range of emotions about how distance learning went for the spring. And we needed to use the tools that were readily available. What we had was what was called Google Classroom. We mentioned that earlier. And it does an okay job, but it really, end of the day, is kind of a messy list of links and things for people to click around on. So what we knew right off the bat, not knowing how this COVID-19 was going to go for the fall, and likely that we'd have to do some comprehensive distance learning, we wanted to make that as easy as possible. So we've been working with a team of teachers this summer to look into what's called a learning management system. And that's a piece of software that allows us to coordinate all the different curriculum that's out there and the communication with students and with parents. And so we had a K-12 team, including special education teachers, career technical education teachers, music teachers, PE teachers, as well as the classroom core content teachers, all looking at a tool to be the best tool for us in Grants Pass. And the tool that they chose is called Canvas. And Canvas, again, learning management system. This will be kind of a one-stop shop for most people. What you'll get is that kids will go using their app on a smartphone device, or it could be actually on a browser, on a Chromebook. They'll log into their account, they'll see their specific class, specific assignments that are geared for them, any help tutorial things that the teachers have put together. all of that will be just there geared for the student. It's a very simplified environment, so it's not very messy, and it's kind of easy to navigate. And that's sort of the whole purpose behind that. For parents, for you all, you'll be able to log into your parent Canvas app as well. And again, designed to keep things simple and to give you the kinds of information you're looking for. The tool also allows us to have two-way communication with the teacher back to either parents and or students. And so that communication will be also streamlined for you. We heard over and over again, some of you have kids in different levels and you might have a dozen teachers or more, and that's a lot of emails and a lot of communication, and it can be very frustrating. So trying to, again, simplify how that works for everybody. This learning management system called Canvas allows us to do that. So we're going to share out more of that with you kind of as our teachers are trained out on it. There's a bunch of really great tutorials on like 1, 2, 3, here's how you get into Canvas. One of the nice things when we were looking at learning management systems was, what is it like for the student and what's it like for the parent? That was an important component to our research into a learning management system. Canvas comes as one of the most highly rated by parents and by kids. So what's their experience like? They rated the app very, very high so that kids can get in, they can see their stuff. Their assignments are always right there. Parents, you can see them right there. You can ask questions of the teachers, and it kind of, again, puts it all in that one platform. So more to come on that, but that will become kind of a baseline for all of our classrooms. You'll have this Canvas classroom that you'll start in, and then the assignments will be there, whether it's in person or virtually, either one, that's all going to start right there. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. But again, lots more to come on that. We're going to share out as much as we can to help everybody out with that. And I think we're going to go to a little comparison of CDL versus GP Online.
Yeah. So it's our hope that our CDL model that I was mentioning for grades 4 through 12 is a temporary option that we hope to come back to in-person learning as soon as it can resume. The big difference between CDL, there's a couple of big differences actually, between CDL and GP Online is a commitment that needs to be made for GP Online for the year. GP Online is for grades K through 12, and it's really for those families that have a medically fragile student, complex medical issues, concerns over safety, safely being able to wear a mask, as masks are required for all students on campus. So that's really who that program is designed for. Students will be enrolled in a curriculum that's generated by computer software at middle school and high school. We use a product called Edgenuity. And at elementary, we'll be using a product called Pearson Connects. The product does the pacing and helps with the work, but there will be a Grants Pass School District teachers supporting students as they work through that curriculum. The curriculum in CDL is our district adopted curriculum with our teachers really focused on things that you would traditionally see in our classrooms. We are really encouraging families in grades 4 through 12 to look at CDL. There was a question in the chat earlier about being able to change from CDL to GP Online if the family just still has some concerns over safety. Yes, that will be possible. One of the things we can't allow is back and forth, and it definitely will have to be a quarter by quarter decision based on how we're either in-person instruction or not. Part of it has to do with staffing and our staffing levels and how we're able to accommodate the numbers of students in our CDL or our hybrid model versus the GP Online program. So hopefully that helps clarify a little bit more, and we'll look at answering some more of your questions about the difference in just a few minutes. But I think we're going to talk about services for students with Director White.
Thank you. As you have been able to hear tonight, the planning and the level of detail that has gone into the safety requirements and the instructional planning is really complex, and our team is working very hard to do what's right for students and also follow all the requirements. And so other groups of students who have sort of complex needs are students who experience disabilities, students who have a 504 plan, any of our students who are served under the McKinney-Vento Act, which are students who don't have stable housing, and also our English language learners receive special services, as do our talented and gifted. So all of these special programs and services, whatever model we find ourselves in, whether it's comprehensive distance learning, whether we're able to bring back students in a hybrid model, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, at some point this year, we'll be back to all in-person learning. But whatever model we are in, all of the supports and services for these special programs that I've mentioned will need to be implemented. And they may look differently based on the model, but that does not excuse the district from our responsibility to provide those services. So, for example, I had a chance to visit with a few parents just this week, brainstorming ways that, since our older students will be starting in distance learning for the first 9 weeks, brainstorming ways that we can engage the student and do a much better job than we did last spring when we were in our emergency distance learning. We're having time to be more thoughtful and work with parents and students to really find those ways to provide the services that will work for the individual student. Because we know there's no single plan that will work for all students, and we want to be able to work with the strengths of individual kids to find the ways we can serve students and families the best. And so what you can expect from our special services department is the amount of time face-to-face with staff members, engaging in online lessons, small group, could even be phone conversation, is going to increase. So the amount of face-to-face instruction and contact will definitely increase. We, as directors Evans and Zatola explained, some of that will be through synchronous learning, which means like real time with the teacher, coming across the Zoom with a lesson, and the specially designed instruction that a student would receive from their IEP will be delivered in these models as well. And so the vast majority of the specially designed instruction that students receive must be through synchronous learning. And then we also will supplement that with asynchronous learning opportunities, which would be like a recorded video lesson or a packet that could be done later during more independent times. And we definitely want to work with families who have limitations on the times of day that they might be able to help their students access learning. So services provided for kids with disabilities and 504, just in particular, we do provide all the specially designed instruction, related services like speech services, all the accommodations and modifications that are written into a student's IEP. And of course, the goal is for kids to be able to make progress in the general education curriculum. And so what I would ask and just kind of, put out there is our desire is to really partner with families. We did know that some families were not happy with the level of engagement last spring. And what we would ask is that you would be reaching out to your student's case manager or teacher very, very soon and make sure that you problem solve with them. And don't hesitate to call the district office if you need some support from us. But we want to collaborate with families to find mutually acceptable ways to provide the services that the students are legally entitled to be receiving. Again, your case manager for a student with an IEP is the first contact for you. they'll be reaching out to you to have these same kinds of conversations. And another sort of tip that I would like to just kind of recommend for parents is to keep kind of a log of notes of things that are going well and things that aren't going well, so that as you have those conversations with the case manager, you're really able to provide that input that we really do need. And as you know, that parent input and participation is a huge part of the IEP process. So we ask that you partner with us and collaborate with us and be patient with us and work with us as we work to figure out ways to deliver the services that kids need, even if we are in a distance learning model. And then, of course, as we're able to bring kids back, those experiences will become richer.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Thank
Director
you.
White. Yeah, great job. And there's, more to come on that. That's a complicated topic. This next topic is really about getting access to all this stuff. So like many of you know, last spring we checked out Chromebooks to any student who needed one. And we have enough Chromebooks that we've been buying every year. So as curriculum kind of moves towards that digital realm, to make sure kids have access to digital curricula. So we're going to be doing a very similar process at the right end here of August, right before school starts, of checking out Chromebooks again. It'll look, again, if you did it before, very similar, where we'll have kind of the drive-through. We've got all of the protections in place. All the Chromebooks that came back from homes this spring have been disinfected. They've all been cleaned. It's amazing what things we found on the Chromebooks, the little spills and things like that. We cleaned them up as well as could be. Some of them were broken. We've replaced those. And we'll be checking out Chromebooks that are ready to go for kiddos. One of the features that we've been really wrestling with is we have a lot of families that don't have access to the internet at home, or very limited access. So one of the features of the Canvas learning management system is that it allows for students to come to an area where that Chromebook can be connected. They can log into their student account, and then that device can have all of the content for that week or that unit downloaded onto the Chromebook itself, including videos and things like that. So that really doesn't require that student to have to be connected to the internet to get all of the content. So it kind of eliminates some of those issues that are there, those barriers for kiddos. And so they can go home and work on it, they can submit their assignments, and then the next time that Chromebook is connected, all that stuff synchronizes back with the teacher's Canvas application. So that's one tool that's very nice out there. We're looking at other options for families who don't have connectivity, trying to get some of the local internet service providers to bring down some of their costs for hotspots and things like that. We're actually working with a consortium here in Southern Oregon to see if we can't get those available to our families who need that to get access. But again, we'll be handing out Chromebooks for kids. We'll do the checkout process. We will connect with you to let you know what that looks like. The principals at each of the sites have been great about saying, hey, this group of families come at this time so that you don't have long lines, and that we can do it in as safe a manner as possible. But again, more information to come on that as we get those things developed.
And that concludes that for you, Todd. So I think I have the last talking point here. One of the biggest concerns, and it's come up in the Q&A and chat between both sessions numerous times. First of all, we want to recognize what a burden this is for our families, and how much we are going to rely on you to support your child at home. And many families are single working parents or dual working parents throughout the day, and you're asking yourself, how in the world am I going to keep my child focused and on track? Please know that that is our biggest concern as well, our biggest challenge that we all face as a community. And so I just want you to know that I have spent almost my entire week talking with community partners about how to create space in our communities with volunteerism that is supervised and staffed at high levels to support our kids, to tend to this. So I anticipate being able to share some information by sometime next week. I'm awaiting some direction or response to a question from the Oregon Department of Ed on what we may be able to do with community partners and opportunities that may be out there for families. Again, we recognize that that could be one of the greatest burdens for many of our families, and we are trying to work hard to address options to support you. So with that, Kristen, I believe we are turning it back to you.
Yes, thank you. We've got a lot of good questions, and I know they're probably going to continue coming in, but for some of the ones that we've already gotten in our Q&A, we are just going to start going through them. So one question has to do, and a few questions actually, about parent training. If all schooling is at home, are you going to provide training to parents to be able to support kids? Will there be trainings available for parents and students to learn how to navigate Canvas?
Todd.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick there. So we're going to have lots of opportunities for trainings for parents and for kids. In fact, I've just been going through those training modules yesterday and today to see what they look like and how easily accessible they are. And Canvas has done a very thoughtful job of helping parents and students in particular get access and to navigate. There really isn't a lot to it. Once you have the application on, you log into your account, the account recognizes parents and kids as participants in the Grants Pass School District, and then you get to see your class when it gets rostered and all that good stuff that they're all those times. So yes, we're going to be doing that. We're hoping that this learning management system will allow our teachers to be more effective teachers. There's more tools available. There's more organizations, some more integration of different aspects of teaching and learning. So we're excited about this new adventure. We're hoping that puts less of a burden on mom and dad, because we recognize that may not be the thing that you went to college for or didn't go to college at all, which is awesome. Whatever career you're in, this may not have been your first love. And so we're going to try to do this virtually for you as well as we can. Again, our first love is to be with kids in person. You all know that. And so this is the best we can do at this time. So there will be lots of training opportunities. We'll have quite a bit of information on our website as that starts rolling out here towards the start of the school year.
And Todd, this may be a question that ties into Canvas as well. The question is, will teachers be watching progress online and letting parents know if they fall behind? Maybe this is
Yes.
Trish and Susan too.
Yep, absolutely. Great question. Canvas does, again, great piece of software that allows the teacher to be looking at progress, engaging kids when they're stalling in those homework assignments. And if there's just no activity at all, which can happen, there's a direct communication right back to you parents about, hey, your child's not either not logging in or not making progress on this, might be getting stuck. Let's do some interventions here to help them along. So yes, absolutely. And then parents, you can see in the app, you'll see very easily, these are the assignments and this is what's happening. So you get that.
Thanks, Todd. If secondary students begin the fall term in CDL, would they be able to switch into the online program if that student feels unsafe to return when the metric indicates they can? Trish, you want to take that one?
Yeah, and the quick answer is yes. We would want to work with the parent to talk through the safety concerns. I had answered another question earlier about the hybrid at secondary. It's going to be very complicated when we come back to school in person, how we handle our lunch time with requirements to have no more than 100 students contacted in a day, how students will transfer from class to class. We will only have a portion of the students on campus for in-person instruction. So we are attending to those safety protocols and would want to talk those through before making the switch to GP Online, but that would be available to a family that needed to do that. I'm going to answer another secondary question that has come up that I forgot to cover, and that's schedules. Middle school and high school students are probably eager to know, so which 6 classes am I taking in CDL? Which 4 classes do I have as a high school student? We are working on schedules right now, and I would anticipate you'll be hearing from the high school within the next 2 weeks. Give us some time, but probably the week of August 17th, we'll get some preliminary schedules out to students where they can start contacting their counselors with necessary changes. So be patient with us. We know you're anxious to get those schedules, and they are coming. Also, GP Online, those courses are all in the product Edgenuity or Pearson Connects. you would, for this year, because of staffing and because of our COVID protocols, et cetera, if you are in a GP Online class, you will not be able to take a class in the CDL model. I've gotten that question for some of our band programs, electives. If you choose GP Online, those kind of courses, we won't have our full complement of electives. We won't have many of our programs. You can participate in extracurricular and activities in GP Online, and you're very much still a part of the community, but there are certain things that won't be available to you in GP Online that would be available in CDL.
Thank you, Trish. Questions about electives. Are they still going to be offered? And you may have touched on this in your presentation, but we got several questions about electives.
Yeah, we're going to be offering at the high school our full complement of electives. We are having to reduce the number of electives at the middle school. I'll address the advanced class question for the middle schools. Math, if your student is entering 6th grade and was going to be on track to be in our advanced math class, you'll be getting a communication from administration at the middle school within the next week. If your student was slated to take geometry, we are offering geometry at both middle schools by our middle school teachers. So that will be in your student's schedule. North Middle School had been offering advanced language arts and social studies, and we're not able to fit those into the master schedule at this time. That will not prevent a student's from having their needs met through differentiated instruction. If a teacher feels like their student's not being challenged enough and needs to be have some more advanced coursework available to them, they should reach out to the classroom teacher and then to the administrator on site. It also will not prevent them from taking advanced classes when they move on to high school. Our advanced classes at the freshman level are available to any student who selected them. So know that we've been trying to attend to as many of the needs of our students, but we weren't able to fit those advanced classes in at the middle school for this year.
Thank you, Trish. Susan, this is your wheelhouse. Talking about K-3, when will families get more information on a soft start? And what does that look like when we say soft start? Are we talking about Monday through Friday, every other day, to be determined?
Yeah, so yeah, I touched on that a little bit earlier, but it's a lot of information coming at everybody. So a little bit of to be determined. So what soft start means is that not all students will start on the first day of school and just everybody comes and we go forward. It will probably be small groups of students. Here's an example of what the first week could look like if the metrics allow us to start school. There are 4 days of school that first week, and so possibly we would divide the classes into fourths, and each student would only go 1 day that week. That would allow there to be very small groups for each classroom, and it would be really, first of all, focused on relationship. We always start with that, getting to know your teacher, getting to know those few other kids that are there that day, meeting the principal, all the normal things. I do want to say that though it will be very different and not, necessarily what any of us hope for, it won't be bad. It will be good. There will be laughter and singing and movement breaks and all of those sorts of things. So that sort of thing would happen in that first week, but a lot of emphasis on also just learning and practicing procedures and rules. So, and then it will move forward from there, possibly into half classes. And then a lot of it depends, excuse me, on the metrics and what we're allowed to do. And I think another part of the question, Kristen, was when. The first time that we're able to really get a sense of whether or not we can say, yes, this is what we're going to do is probably the 24th of August, because that is when we will get the official numbers on that first week. That is the 3 weeks preceding the start of school. And so we're watching numbers all the time now. We're watching how it's trending. So far, it's trending in a way that would allow that in-person instruction, but then getting that first week at least under our belt and then based on the previous weeks would give us a better sense of which direction we would go.
And a follow-up, several questions coming in. Is there a CDL option for K3?
Yeah, well, so CDL is at any time that we're not able to start it with any sort of in-person instruction, then everybody would be on CDL. And it would be exactly as Director Evans described it. It's still the classroom teacher delivering the instruction using our district curriculum. So, so that's that's determined more by the metrics. If we can come in person, then we're in person. If we cannot, then it's CDL. The companion question maybe to that is, even if we can come in person, if the metrics allow and the district decides that is something we can safely do, and a family doesn't feel comfortable with that, then, and they want an online option, then that's the GP Online. That they should be considering signing up for GP Online.
Thanks, Susan. Linda, this question is for you. Will you be bringing cohorts of special needs students that have more significant learning needs on site?
Thank you for the good questions. We know that distance learning is challenging for students who experience significant disabilities, and we are going to work to bring those students back to online or on-site learning as quickly as we can and still follow all the rules. So we will be learning more next week on exactly what we can do for our special education students in site-based programs. For now, our plan is that students with an IEP will come back to in-person school following all the grade level requirements. So for example, if our kindergarten through third grade students are able to come back to some on-site learning, then our students with special needs in those same grades would also be able to come back to school. We're going to be working to meet those needs, and if we can bring more kids in safely, we will be wanting to do that.
Thanks, Linda. Questions about facial coverings. Are students allowed to wear cloth face masks, face shields? What is allowed under the guidance?
So they can wear the cloth face coverings, or they can wear the shields. Either one would be acceptable for our students.
Thank you, Sherry. Question about the spring. In the spring, contact via Zoom required parent supervision. Will that be the case in the fall? I don't know who wants to take that one.
I'll go ahead and jump. We are reviewing FERPA guidelines and we'll be changing a few things about our processes and procedures for online meetings with students. It's also our hope that we'll be recording a lot more lessons and posting those and taking out identifiable information on students. So I think we should be good to go on that, but we'll be getting some more detailed information as we get closer to the start of school.
Thanks, Trish. And Dan or Kirk, you may be able to answer this. Have you identified any areas you could use volunteers?
I don't believe we've spent time trying to identify areas where we can use volunteers in our schools. In fact, we got very stringent requirements about allowing volunteers on our campuses when kids and staff are present. Where the volunteerism, I spoke to it a little bit earlier, the volunteerism would be if you're a neighbor who your neighbor has children and they need support monitoring or supervising their kids in online, that might be the #1 volunteer opportunity in our community that can happen right now, is families getting together, connecting and sharing that responsibility. We recognize that's the big burden. So if volunteers can be anywhere, that's where we would love to see them.
Next question, how much real-time teacher-student interaction can be expected? And I imagine that will change varying secondary and elementary?
So at elementary, it's 1.5 to 2 hours a day of the synchronous instruction that I think Trish described earlier, but that live real-time instruction. And then the rest of the time would be for applied learning, as well as, breaks, physical movement, and that sort of thing. And then I think the times, Trish can say, increase a little bit at secondary.
Yeah, for middle school, you can expect teacher facilitated learning to happen 2 hours and 30 minutes a day. And at the high school, it will be 2 hours and 50 minutes a day. Teacher facilitated takes on a lot of different nuances. It's not necessarily all sitting in front of a computer screen like this for 2.5 hours, although a portion of it will be. You will be logged in and live and interacting with your peers. So there will be a set schedule, but we also will be attending to accommodations that need to be made for various conditions that are happening at home. So we're going to try to be flexible, but we are required to provide live teaching and learning on a daily basis.
Next question, and there's been several about this, is cohorts. What do cohorts look like? How big are they?
I'll start with elementary. I can't give a number because it really depends on every single room in our district. So we have measurements of every single room, and the requirement is one body that includes adults. That's not just kids, but no more than one body per 35 square feet of usable space in a classroom. And so our schools are not, standard. We have very different size classrooms. So it's not a one size fits all answer. But it is smaller than what you would often see in a classroom. I would say the range is 19 to probably 21 maybe. I'm not looking at the list of every single room. Sherry might have it memorized, but I don't. But that's kind of the range. And in some cases, it would be smaller. Of course, if we're in a hybrid situation, it would be half that. So it would be a very, very small number. And then just the idea of a cohort is a stable group of students. So at elementary, that's one of the reasons why they would not be eating lunch in the cafeteria, where you have one grade and sometimes 2 grades at a time in the cafeteria. We're not going to mix cohorts. It's kind of like your family. You have your family at home, and if you are just staying with your family and you're not going out and doing, mixing with other groups of people, then you're keeping that's your family cohort. We're going to have a school cohort. So that's what the idea of a cohort is just a stable group, not interacting with everybody in the school.
At middle school and high school, I'm not going to get too much into the specifics of it because we're going to be in CDL for September, October, and part of November, and then determining if we're coming back in a hybrid approach. But the cohort size is no more than 100 student contacts in a day. So at middle school, we think we have a pretty good plan for cohorts of 12 students that will move from class to class together. They will come together in a group of 50 or 30, combine a bunch of those 12s together for the lunch period, and will be zoned in different areas of the school and campus. For the high school, obviously it's a little more complicated. We'll have half of the 1,800 students on campus, so cohorting 900 kids, we have to get pretty creative with how we do that. Students will transition from class to class, but there will be there'll be set patterns and ways that we go about doing that, and then how we will go about serving lunch will also be much different. It'll be a closed campus. Students will be assigned to specific areas for lunch, trying to keep that cohort size below the 100 minimum.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to try to get to a couple more questions. I know we're running out of time here, but again, we will continue to go through all these questions. We're going to pull them. I know that several people have asked, are they going to be able to see these questions? Yes, they're all going to be put into an FAQ document that will be on our website, and so you will be able to access the questions as they're built into that document. But let's get through just a couple more. And this is just a clarifying question, and they may have hopped on a little late. The question is, when will we know if we're starting in comprehensive distance learning? And I don't know if that's for K3 or if that's for K12, but maybe we can just clarify.
We are in comprehensive distance learning, grades 4 through 12, starting now, through at least November 11th.
And K3 is not quite decided yet. Currently, the metrics would allow us, if it trended in the same direction, to start with some in-person instruction, but we're not yet within the window of the actual weeks that we have to track. So we need to wait a little bit. We're hoping to have more of a definitive decision made by August 24th.
This is a question about COVID cases. If one student gets COVID, will the whole school be shut down? And on the same note, if a teacher gets COVID, will there be other teachers to fill in?
So if one,
oh, sorry, Sherry.
Go ahead, Danny.
Well, I'll do the teacher part if you want to do the COVID part. So the teacher part, we contract with Southern Oregon ESD to provide substitutes. And so we have met with them, and they have a pool of substitutes available who are able to do both online instruction or in-person instruction if it comes to that. So if somebody gets sick or has to take a day or two or something, or even an extended period of time, we do have a substitute pool available.
And if somebody does test positive, it will depend on what the health department tells us. They will notify them immediately, and they will start the whole contact tracing process to determine who that person has been in contact with. And so would it mean that we would just have to shut down one classroom for a certain period of time, or the entire school? That will be a decision that will be made in partnership with the health department. And then we would get the communications out to families as soon as we are aware, and the health department would also start contacting families to let them know if there was a possibility that their child might have been exposed to someone who tested positive.
Thank you. And last question, will CDL limit the student from being taught to their level, being challenged in some subjects and extra help in other subjects, trying to decide between CDL and GP online?
Can you say that one again?
Sure. Will CDL limit the student from being taught to their level? For example, being challenged in some subjects and extra help in other subjects. They're trying to decide between CDL and GP online. I believe the graphic in GP online was talking about directed to the student. And I think that's what the question was in response to.
I'm just going to say that that's complicated in GP online because we are using a canned program that doesn't necessarily, it's self-paced. We can, depending on what grade level your student is, that could vary on the answer here. It also would depend on if your student qualifies for any services. That would be a conversation to have with their counselor, how we set them up in the online product. CDL will be a little bit more responsive in terms of how to differentiate for individual students. It will be a little bit, we're new to the online thing. It's not, we're learning a lot. And so bear with us as we try to navigate the GP online platforms.
Thank you, Trish. And anything else that our panelists want to add before we wrap things up and let people know where they can submit questions?
Nope, I think I just want to once again thank everybody for your wonderful questions. They are very helpful for us as we continue to design and communicate what education is going to look like this fall and into the school year. So thank you everyone for attending tonight.
Thank you, Superintendent Colvin. Thank you to all of our panelists for being here and answering questions. Thank you to all of you who joined us for this virtual town hall. We are learning as we go, and so we appreciate you being here. Again, we will be compiling all these questions and putting them into an FAQ document. I know some people are asking about the slides and graphics, things like that. Those are going to be available both on the website and on some of our social media platforms. If we didn't get to your question, or you think of something else, or you just have feedback, go ahead and send those to the email on your screen. And again, if you're joining us by phone, that's Office of the Superintendent with underscores in between each word at grantspass.k12.or.us. Of course, we will continue to share out developments as they come in, and we really appreciate you being here this evening.
Good night, everybody.
Night.